Dear participants, dear mayor, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to join the warm words that have been said with regards to the Baltic Forum. We all understand that the situation in Europe and in the world is such that we need dialogue, we need to attract people with experience or without experience, but in order to solve problems, to look for compromise solutions that would allow us to move towards our original idea, about which a lot of people say, but from which we unfortunately are becoming more and more distant, namely the construction of a stable Europe. People of my generation used to live with a dream about an inseparable large Europe. Of course, there were always skeptical ones who didn't believe in that. However, there were more romantic people who still believed in it. When the Helsinki Act was signed in the last century, the dream on the large Europe became more and more realistic. When the Berlin Wall fell, many people, including myself and I think a lot of people present here today, decided that now nothing can prevent us from creating a larger Europe. And Russia, despite all the internal complications of the 1990s, began an active policy of coming closer to the rest of Europe. The relevant documents on cooperation with the EU and NATO were signed. Russia joined the Council of Europe. In the beginning of the 21st century, we began seeing the main framework of the large Europe from Lisbon to the Far East. Maybe during the discussion we can speak about it more, but to those who are interested in this subject, when I was flying here, I reread the book by Mr. Primakov once again, The Meeting on the Crossroads. In this book, he tells in a lot of detail about the internal process in the Russian public administration, about the negotiations, about his personal effort and the Russian administration efforts aimed at achieving that, despite all the difficulties related to the enlargement of NATO, to find the common language with Europe, to move towards Europe, to overcome the obstacles that existed in Europe. At a certain point, as I already said, it could be felt that there are only few steps left until the larger Europe. There were 4 common spaces in which it had to be created. The relevant roadmaps were prepared, the trade and economic relations thrived, the agreements on education, science, and civil society existed. It was all so recent. It looked just like yesterday, but now here we look at that and it seems so far away. We can now see that the larger Europe did not come true for us. The chance that we had once in a century was not used. And unfortunately, the current generation of politicians in the West and the East will not have another opportunity like that. In my opinion, there is nothing worse than to continue to persuade oneself and the others that not everything is lost, that the problems will be solved in one way or another, and that the European policy will come back to its regular path of its last quarter century. Unfortunately, we will not be able to overcome the problems that exist right now. The Ukrainian crisis illustrated that the political elites in Russia and Europe are not ready to build their common destiny in the 21st century. Sometimes I hear, in the words of some politicians who start the clock of the modern policy from the Ukrainian crisis. If you remember all the documents, the 1997 Act on Russia-NATO, the agreement on cooperation between the EU and Russia, the 2002 document from Rome when the Council of Russia-EU was drafted. Look at all these wordings. I remember them very well because I participated in the drafting. We always called one another partner. But if we were real partners, tell me, would we have uh, allowed the Ukrainian crisis to take place? Because undoubtedly it is a common problem, both of Russia and the EU, the fact that in Ukraine there is crisis. The problem was with confidence, with trust. If we had trust, would we have allowed civil war in Europe in the 21st century? So please do not try to cover by words what really happened. There was a period where we were coming closer, but then we began distancing from one another. But let us stop deceiving ourselves by saying that we did not move towards this crisis. This crisis just illustrated all the problems that were accumulating in our relations by breaking up as an abscess on the body of Ukraine. The economic interdependence that we have always mentioned still exists, and we hoped that the parties will be made by it to become politically flexible, that it will mitigate the crisis, and all these hopes were dashed by the reality of sanctions and anti-sanctions. The numerous institutes that had to prevent and to mitigate the crisis in Europe showed their full incompetence right at the moment when they were needed. Please go ahead and read the Rome document of 2002, why the Council Russia-NATO was created. It is stated very obviously that in the case of a threat of a conflict, the necessary consultations would have to take place in order to prevent a conflict, and if a conflict takes place, to find common efforts in order to solve these problems. What were the actions in August 2008 and in February 2014? The Council of NATO Russia, upon the initiative of NATO, froze its activity. And I can give you examples of all the institutes that are so numerous and that we were so proud of. We were so proud that in the Euro transatlantic space there are so many institutes. 2 decades of intensive cultural, educational, humanitarian conflicts failed to prevent an explosion of mutual hostility that can be seen today. The lack of trust, the rebirth of very archaic relations similar to Cold War. Just look at the media language in Russia and in Europe. Such discourse could not be found even during the Cold War. It feels like somebody was accumulating a vocabulary of humiliating words and expressions that are now poured from the press. Everything has already been said, both in the West and in Russia. I hope that today, during the discussion, we will have an opportunity to exchange our opinions. In my opinion, it is important to finish our discussions and to admit that the paths of Russia and Europe are going in different directions, and maybe for several decades. This continental shift, this between two European geopolitical plates will have a long-term effect on Europe and the entire world. We will never come back to the situation of the autumn of 2013, even if the situation in Ukraine will be normalized. The change that takes place in front of us is not only radical but also irrevocable. It stops various political projects and prevents other political projects from taking place.
The significance of this new geopolitical split is aggravated by the fact that over half of our continent now have to take crucial decisions about their inner development. The European Union now faces probably the most serious challenge in its history. Apart from Ukraine, its economic stagnation, the crisis of the Eurozone, migration problems, separatist threats, the strain between the south and the north of Europe. Not easy times for European Union either. They have to look for new sources of economic development in the 21st centuries. In this situation, Europe and Russia see each other as part of a problem and not part of the solution, rather, which is not the best situation for reviving the idea of big Europe, the project of New Europe. In this context, Euro-Atlantic space, the concept of Euro-Atlantic space, acquires new significance. Previously, it was seen as stretching over to the Urals, like in some treaties, or even Vladivostok, but now the situation has changed. Talking of Euro-Atlantic space, we mean today Western Europe and the USA. This is not only about security represented by NATO, but economy as well. So we can say today that in the modern world, Euro-Atlantic space means Western states situated in Europe and in North America. On the other hand, processes of Euro-Asian integration become quicker. These are the Shanghai Organization of Cooperation, the New Silk Way, etc., and some other projects. It's now fashionable to say that instead of big Europe, the big Eurasia comes. And while the outlines or the contours of the new Eurasia are still blurry, we can see this is a long-term tendency of a new transnational economic and political reality. Euro-Atlantic space on the one hand, and Eurasia on the other are new global emerging centers. This tendency, which became obvious also before the Ukrainian crisis, needs some consideration. We have to think it over. What will the relations be like between them? Shall we be able to avoid the new bipolarity, the repetition of the 20th century in the 21st century? In my view, the bipolar tendency is not desirable. Then the negative impacts of the new global split, will become obvious. We should not let this bipolarity emerge. And this means that we have to try to retain the few bridges which still connect us, which we in our...
Речь идет о механизмах ОБСЕ, о Совете Европы, о субрегиональных организациях, таких как Организация Черноморского экономического сотрудничества, Арктический совет и так далее. На все эти структуры и организации нельзя возлагать чрезмерные надежды. Они, как мы убедились на практике, не предотвратили и не предотвратят континентального разлома между Евроатлантикой и Евразией, но они могли бы помешать этому разлому приобрести наиболее жесткий, конфронтационный и опасный формат. Перед нами стоит задача определить такие правила игры между Евроатлантикой и Евразией, которые бы свели к минимуму риски неконтролируемой конфронтации, создали бы возможности для диалога и сотрудничества в решении общих проблем. Не решив этой задачи, мы будем обречены на исторически длительную биполярность в ее наихудшем варианте. Очевидно, что в формирующейся новой геополитической реальности Россия перестает быть восточным флангом несостоявшейся Большой Европы и превращается в западный фланг формирующейся Большой Евразии. Перенос стратегических акцентов с западного на восточное направление представляется практически предрешенным, независимо от динамики и конечного исхода текущего кризиса. Сложности переноса акцентов ни в коем случае нельзя недооценивать. Это долговременный, болезненный и очень деликатный процесс, требующий не только политической воли, но и высокого профессионализма. Иначе вместо стратегической переориентации можно получить экономическую и геополитическую изоляцию. Перенос стратегических акцентов означает, что Москва должна инвестировать существенный политический капитал в развитие механизмов Евразес, Шанхайской организации сотрудничества и других многосторонних структур Большой Евразии. Тем более, что многие из этих механизмов создаются практически с чистого листа, и у российской внешней политики есть все возможности сыграть активную и по некоторым направлениям лидирующую роль в их становлении. Это, разумеется, не означает, что Россия должна повернуться спиной к Европе, отказаться от взаимодействия со своими европейскими партнерами, коллегами и друзьями. Конечно, нет. Россия к Европе привязывает слишком многое – история, география, культура, религия, наработанный десятилетиями опыт экономического сотрудничества. Более того, успех включения России в различные евразийские интеграционные проекты в немалой степени зависит от того, удастся ли Москве обеспечить безопасность и стабильность на своем западном фланге, наладить новые, прагматичные и взаимовыгодные отношения со своими европейскими соседями. Контуры будущих российско-европейских отношений пока еще только вырисовываются. Но уже сегодня ясно, что эти отношения не должны быть заложниками политической риторики и романтических ожиданий конца прошлого, начала нынешнего столетия. Необходимо провести тщательную инвентаризацию существующих, работающих форм взаимодействия по всем 4 пространствам и целенаправленно работать по конкретным направлениям, не возрождая старых иллюзий и не порождая новых. Например, Россия и Европейский Союз могли бы сосредоточиться на такой болезненной для всех теме, как управление миграциями, или на профилактике политического экстремизма и терроризма, или на субрегиональных механизмах сотрудничества от Черноморского региона до Арктики. Россия и Европейский Союз все равно остаются соседями, и даже закат идеи Большой Европы не в силах отменить этой очевидной реальности. Спасибо большое. Я готов ответить на вопросы сейчас или потом, в ходе нашей общей дискуссии. Спасибо.